red dress. Call 911, I'm a killer. You know I hate to confess. Bang, bang, got my hand on the trigger. The devil in a red dress. Call 911, I'm a killer. You know I hate to confess. Bang, bang, got my hand. Call
What up? We have Tank Spencer joining us remotely. He won't be saying much. He's playing in the leaves. I didn't really know. Tank's got a family thing, and I didn't really know how to say that in an appropriate way, so I made a little fat, chunky baby Tank playing in some leaves. I'm Jeremy Greene. You already know that. Today, we're doing uncensored stuff. A lot of people ask for us to do these streams, and I'm a really big fan of them. We have an announcement about these streams that will be coming up sometime today. I don't know exactly when we will do that, but get whatever you want to talk about in the chat. If you want to talk about sports, we'll talk about sports. If you want to talk about boobs, we'll talk about boobs. I don't really care. Whatever it is you want to talk about, that's what we're going to do. If you ask me political questions, just know I will answer them, and I will answer them honestly. And if you don't like it, that's okay. We live in a country that's built on that, and that's really what I want to start with today. We do this, I feel like, every single time we have an election or anything like that. And I have a theory that I'm going to share. I've never shared it on this show because it's a sports show. So I don't ever really get to do this. I fully believe that as a country, we are a box and line graph. If you don't know what that is, that's something you were taught in one day in a math class in probably the 8th grade, and you never used it again. And what it is that you have outliers on the outside, and then the bulk of the data is in the middle, and it's in the box. I believe the United States of America is in that box, where many of us feel the same way about a lot of things. And we may not agree ideologically on everything, but in terms of what we do on a day-to-day basis, what we're looking for, we want to be taken. We want ourselves to be taken care of. We want our families to be taken care of. We don't want to spend $80 gajillion in gas and groceries. And we want to be able to prosper, take one vacation a year and enjoy life that way. what I have discovered, and I knew this going in, but it has really pissed me off over the course of the last few days, is we have a lot of people, many of them are co-hosts on The View or hosts nighttime television shows, that have 9 figures in the bank and want to talk to us like we're all fucking morons. There is nothing in life that I hate more than Jimmy Kimmel. There is nothing I hate more in life than Joy Behar. I don't care how you vote. I posted this on social media yesterday. I don't care if you voted for Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, or Yosemite fucking Sam. I don't care. That is your right as a citizen, and I am just sick and tired of Hollywood elites telling us how stupid we are because we don't agree with them. No, you are the fucking stupid one. You are the stupid one that does not understand what you are voting for because you're told what to vote for because your producer tells you what to vote for. And if it was popular for you to vote one way, that's what you would do. And don't be shocked if the tune of these people changes quite vehemently over the next 4 years. And that is my rant on that. I wanted to get that out, and my name is on the door, so that's what I did. And now we can move past that, hopefully, and I don't get asked any more questions about it. But if you want to ask those questions, feel free. Just know that I will answer them. Gambit fans starting us off with, actually, Sir Jimothy started us off with Uncensored. It's like being 12 watching Girls Gone Wild commercials at 2 a.m. Yes, I didn't think I would ever be compared to Girls Gone Wild, but here we are. Gambit. Man, I really want the Bengals to win tonight because the media talk about Joe Burrow is getting insufferable. Tonight's game is really interesting to me with Baltimore and Cincinnati because you have two teams that I don't think are that far off in terms of talent, but you have two teams that are really far off in terms of culture and in terms of coaching. So what I'm interested to see tonight is, do you get a Cincinnati Bengal team whose back is against the wall and they show up and they show out? That does not seem to be what Vegas thinks we're going to get tonight. 6-point spread to me, even with this game being in Baltimore, feels borderline disrespectful. 6 is a lot of points. Especially when I look at a Baltimore defense that I'm not overly impressed by. I don't really know how you're going to deal with Jamar Chase. I don't really know how you're going to deal with Joe Burrow. And I figured when I saw that number that I would go to the metrics that I'm able to use, and I would see a substantial amount of money on the Bengals, and that's not what I found. The money is pretty split. The tickets are pretty split. If it was up to Vegas, then every game would be like this, where you got 53-47 on each side. They're going to collect vig, and everybody's going to be happy. I am shocked that people feel the way that this game is going to go the way it is, because it appears that the narrative is that we're going to get a pretty significant Baltimore Raven win tonight. I don't necessarily feel that way. Curtis Davis asked what my 5 on it best bet for tonight would be. Let's go to the DraftKings Sportsbook, official sportsbook of this here program. You can use our code WPEK if you don't wager on DraftKings right now and get all of the free monies on a $5 wager. Let's go same game parlay for the Bengals and the Ravens. I am going to take Cincinnati plus the 6. I'm going to take over the 52.5. I will go anytime touchdown scorer Derrick Henry, anytime touchdown scorer Jamar Chase. That pays that. Oh shit, I got to log in. Hold on. It's live. I don't. Oh, good. You remember my password, because I don't. That pays at plus 600. That would be, to me, that feels like the way this is going to go. Is that you're going to get a pretty close game. I still think Baltimore is going to win, because I don't know how Cincinnati's going to deal with Derrick Henry. So I will lean to Cincinnati tonight. I will take the points. I'm not confident enough to go money line. I do think you're going to have points scored, because flat out neither one of these defenses is very good, and the offenses both are. No T. Higgins, it looks like tonight, which means I believe they're going to lean more on Chase Brown, Andre Yoshivas. I don't feel great about anytime touchdown score there. If you're looking for a prop line or anything like that. Joe Burrow's line appears to be about 275. That feels a little high because they are starting to really acclimate Chase Brown. I'm not averse to it. It just feels high to me. Lamar Jackson's, on the other hand, seems to be somewhere between 240 and at 250 passing yards for Lamar Jackson at plus 125. That feels very safe. I can't put that in a same game parlay, so I couldn't tell you what exactly that would do to the odds. I can tell you it's plus 125, and being a fifth pick, you're talking about probably plus 1,500. So I like Lamar Jackson to go over 250 yards passing tonight, and I think it's really, really safe. Sir Jimothy said, yesterday was great. Today I'm great again, as am I. Joshua Brooks, ready for the NFL season to be over. My Jaguars are so dysfunctional. The Jaguars are dysfunctional. But I will give you for Jaguar fans, I will give you something that might make you feel a little bit better. I don't think you're as dysfunctional as this season is making it appear, because Doug Peterson has aggressively lost this locker room, and it's so damn obvious that I can't believe he's still employed. That part would worry me. Is why is Shad Khan not seeing this? Why have they not moved on? Why have they not tried to get a new voice in the room? And I don't really have a great answer to that, other than he doesn't believe in firing coaches in season. The only problem with that is I've seen him do it twice. So for whatever reason, he still thinks Doug is the right guy to lead them in at least this weekend. With no Trevor Lawrence, you will get annihilated. Trevor's not been great, but he is grossly better than Mac Jones. If you're a Jacksonville Jaguar fan, the thing that would encourage me is looking at the talent that's on the roster and what a good coach could do there. The problem is that I'm not sure he's going to move on from Trent Baalke, because he does believe in Baalke, and I think Shad Khan looks at that roster much like I do. You have improved to such a point that you kind of have to tie it back to where did that come from. And Baalke's been the one making personnel decisions. If you think the roster is intact and still really good, then you would probably give him credit for that and give him the opportunity to go hire a coach. I don't think that's the right path in any shape, form, or fashion, which is ironic because I do think that's the path with the New York Jets. I would clean house. I would go to a candidate like Ben Johnson or whoever it is and basically say, look, you got carte blanche. You can bring in your own personnel guy. Your personnel guy can run the front office. You're going to have the ability to run your team your way. Now, I heard Adam Schefter this morning talking about Ben Johnson, who I just so happen to know. I don't know him as well as some other people in Asheville do, but I know him pretty well, and I know his dad even better. Ben's not going to just take a job to take an NFL job. He didn't do it last year. It wasn't about money. I felt like that was grossly overreported, and it was just a fallacy. Ben Johnson doesn't want to take his swing as a head coach in a place that he can't win. And I'm not sure he's going to look at Jacksonville with Shad Khan as a place that he can win. I'll tell you definitively he won't do it with Trent Baalke. I don't know that he's going to feel that way about the New Orleans Saints. I know for damn sure he's not going to feel that way about the Dallas Cowboys. I believe Ben Johnson will be the most sought-after candidate in this cycle. The problem is that I don't know that there's a place that's going to be able to move him. The New York Giants are the one I keep coming back to because they do make sense with stable ownership from the top down, and he would have the ability to put his own guy in place. I think some of these teams that are looking for coaches, whether it's the Jets or the Saints, who already have coaching openings, the Jaguars, the Giants, the Dallas Cowboys, probably the Chicago Bears, I think you're going to run into a problem of there aren't necessarily enough candidates for all of you to get a guy that you're going to feel really good about. And that may keep a couple of these guys employed for longer than they should. And let me break down what I'm talking about. I did not Google this before I started doing the show. I'm going to click on the first article that comes up with coaching candidates 2025. It comes from Pro Football Network. It was 2 days because of the relationship that they have and they have had. He was close to being the Giants head coach when they hired, I believe it was Joe Judge. It was either Joe Judge or Brian Dable, but I'm pretty confident it was Joe Judge. That's who they wanted. They were trying to orchestrate a move to get Bill Belichick, and he was interested. I think that is the job he would want. And if you listen to his comments, it makes a lot of sense because he's railing on the Jets and their ownership. He ain't getting a call from the Jets. We don't want you. You don't want us. No need to keep talking about it. But he's the second best candidate according to Pro Football Network. That should tell you a lot of where we're at. Aaron Glenn is the 3. I like Aaron Glenn. He was one of my favorite Jets of all time, and I think he's a really good coach. I don't necessarily know that he's going to be a great head coach because you do have to look at this defense and go, yes, it has improved, but why has it improved? Because the talent on the team has gotten better. It's not a schematic thing. I think he's doing a good job, and he did win the NFLPA survey last year of rating your coaches. Guys love him. He's a great players coach, and I think players will love him. The only thing is that you're going to have to stack him with a Cliff Kingsbury type of offensive coordinator, and I'm just not sure that guy's out there. We'll get to. I have a funny feeling we're getting to Cliff before too very, very long. Mike Vrabel is 4. He's a defensive coach in an offensive league. He had really worn out his welcome in Nashville. And I'm not sure he is viewed the way that we view him in league circles. He's very well liked. He's been around the Browns this year as a consultant. But I'm not sure he's the home run hire that everybody else thinks he is. Jesse Minter is 5. And I get it, the defense has been good, but I don't really view him as an NFL head coaching candidate right now. I like Joe Brady, who comes in at 6. Todd Monken is kind of comical to me. He's an older guy that's never been a head coach, not at this level. And I don't see him as a head coach in waiting. I look at that team and go, that's John Harbaugh has built a great institution, and he's doing a pretty good job calling plays. Brian Flores is 8. He's actively suing the fucking league. It's hard for me to believe that a guy that players hated absolutely typhooned the Miami Dolphins and then sued the league is somebody that a lot of owners are going to be running out to hire. Drew Petzing of the Arizona Cardinals, their OC, is 9. Okay, I get it. He's the young hotshot. That's what everybody clings to. I think he's going to get interviews, but I don't necessarily think he's a great solution. I think he's a really good offensive coordinator. I think he fits really nicely with Jonathan Gannon, but that doesn't mean I think he's going to be a great head coach. Kellen Moore, I've never thought he was a head coach, and I probably never will think he's a head coach. He was 10. Vance Joseph, are you fucking kidding me? I've already read that book. It didn't go well. Adam Stanovich of the Green Bay Packers, meh. Liam Cohen of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, eh. Ajira Avero, the defensive coordinator of the Panthers, their defense is awful. And he's done nothing really to make it better. I think he will get a head coaching shot at some point. That's really tough to sell. That we're hiring the defensive coordinator of the worst team in the NFL and getting the fan base to really feel good about that. And then Cliff Kingsbury comes in at 15. I've already seen Cliff as a head coach. It didn't go well. It was an absolute abomination in Arizona. I don't think 1 year with what many of us viewed to be an elite quarterback prospect in Jaden Daniels is really going to change that. Then they had an honorable mention, which, let me pull up the whole list here. Dan Pitcher of the Bengals, give me a break. Bobby Babich from the Buffalo Bills, their DC. Matt Nagy, Zach Robinson, Mike Kafka, Jeff Ulbrich, the interim head coach of the Jets, Jeff Hafley in Green Bay. I've said the whole time, that's one that, you mark my words, he's going to get a job, and it's not going to take that long. Patrick Graham, Ryan Grubb, Terrell Austin, Bobby Slowick, and Denard Wilson. Did any of those guys really send you? If you're a fan of a team that's going to be firing their coach, did you go, oh, yeah, that's going to be awesome? Because I didn't, and I don't think you should either. So I'm not sure you're going to get the unbelievable amount of turnover. Adam Schefter said 8 this morning. I see the Jets, I see the Jaguars, the Saints, and the Cowboys. Those are the 4 guarantees. Everybody else, I could be convinced that they hold on to the guy they have. Joshua Brooks, should I start TJ Hawkinson or Mike Gesicki in fantasy this week? Well, Gesicki plays Baltimore tonight, and Baltimore is bad against tight ends. And Hawkinson, I think they're bringing along slow. I would go Mike Gesicki. I'm probably a week away from really trusting TJ Hawkinson. He was not overly involved last week. I don't remember how many snaps he played, but I can get an answer on that. In these live form, uncensored things, there are times that I don't necessarily have an answer off the top of my head, but I can get to one. TJ Hawkinson in his first game played 34 snaps. He was fine. I would still go. I would go Gesicki this week. I have TJ Hawkinson in a lot of fantasy leagues. I'm going under the assumption that it's going to take a minute. And once he's back in full, he will be the TJ Hawkinson of old. Sir Jimothy asked, who should Dallas hire as their head coach, OC, defensive coordinator, and who do you think will actually take the job? Those are two completely different questions to me. Who should they hire? Ben Johnson. They should go to Ben and say, Ben, this is the most glamour franchise in the league. It's the most popular team in the league, and you can be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, and we'll cede control to you. Here's the thing. I know Ben well enough to know he ain't going to believe you even if you tell him that. He is a notoriously skeptical guy. He's a very nice guy, but he's also a very smart guy. And looking at the history of Jerry Jones, I don't think he would believe it. Now, as for who they will hire, that screams Kellen Moore to me and has forever because Jerry's so damn loyal and the offense has regressed. And I easily see how he's going to get his brain around going back to what he knows, which is Kellen Moore. If I were to give you three candidates that I would say were interesting there, he's going to call Bill Belichick. There's zero doubt in my mind. He's going to interview for that job. He may get that job because this is about the time in the wheel where Bill goes or where Jerry goes back to the famed coach. And people would say Mike McCarthy. He wasn't really viewed that way. McCarthy was just the best candidate in that cycle. That strikes me as the Bill Parcells hire of, holy shit, this is not going well. Let me give it to a guy that I know is really, really smart. Do I think Bill would take it? Only if the Giants didn't come open. Mike Vrabel is the other one that I have long thought probably either gets a call or at the very least interviews for that job. I don't really see a path that he doesn't offer that job to one of the three names I just said, knowing damn well that it's going to be open. Afternoon, Matt. Kevin the PRF, I don't mind ripping The View or other trash commentary, but Fox News commentary shows suck just as much. Just as much, I will disagree. Sucks, yes, I will agree. The thing that I hate about The View is that you've got five women that don't know their head from a fucking hole in the ground that are telling me how to think. And if you don't believe me, just go fact check any opening monologue they've had. I've watched one in my life and I laughed at, holy good Lord, that is all just fear-mongering bullshit. But yes, they're all bad. There are very few political shows that I actually enjoy. And nobody's going to believe what's getting ready to come out of my mouth. I think the commentator that I've heard in the last 48 hours that I have the most respect for, Clay Travis is up there pretty high, and Stephen A. Smith is up there pretty high. So if you think I only go to the party of which I voted, just understand that I probably would have Stephen A. Smith at one. His opening monologue of the Stephen A. Smith show that I saw it this morning. I don't know exactly when he posted it. I know it's been sometime in the last 36 hours. I thought it was concise. I thought it was to the point. I thought it was very well informed. And it screams to me that Stephen A. Smith is getting his own show away from ESPN, and it's probably not going to take that long. But yes, I agree. All the commentary shows are, in large part, are awful. But The View is the awfulest of the awful. Jimmy Kimmel also up there. Don't talk when you don't know what you're talking about, and it's very obvious that you don't know what you're talking about. Matthew Hoffman, hey, Baby Tank is back. So Baby Tank will always be here when Tank's not here, namely because it is a pain in the ass to contour this screen without Tank, because there's a lot of elements that go to that, and he'll be back tomorrow. So It's a lot more fun to just have Baby Tank. And I put it into AI with whatever it is I think he's doing that day. I didn't want to put in what I know he's doing today, so we just threw him in some leaves. Joshua Pinnock said Baby Tank killed me. What's funny is that's always one of Tank's favorite parts about going back and watching these shows that I do by myself is figuring out where I have put him that given day. We usually get a pretty good laugh about that. Matthew Hoffman talking about Derrick Henry. Cincinnati defended him pretty well the last time they played him. He was under 100 yards. You're right. I don't dispute that in any way, but I find that to be more, I will say that is more one-off than who they really are, because that game got very high scoring. If I remember correctly, I think Lamar had over 42 completions. I was waiting on my computer to catch up there. That game got very shootouty. I don't think Baltimore wants to get into another one of those. You also had Lamar run a lot. Lamar, I think he had 12 carries for 55 yards. Henry had 15 for 92. You also got, what I think you said there was anecdotal of, yes, he did only have 92 yards. He also didn't play for almost a full quarter of this game, and he averaged 6 yards a carry. I would say Baltimore comes into this game with the intention of we're going to get Derrick Henry 22 touches tonight, and more than likely you're not going to get 60-plus yards out of Charlie Kohler tonight. So I would still lean on Derrick Henry. I think you're getting better odds because of what you said, which is that is a good dive there from Matthew Hoffman. Austin Groves asked, what do we do with Jalen Waddle or Jackson Smith and Jigba? Will you play Jackson Smith and Jigba and you stay the fuck away from Jalen Waddle? Jalen Waddle has become a completely irrelevant part of the Miami Dolphins. Now, I will say, I looked at their schedule the other day, and I did see a game coming. The Rams this week on Monday Night Football is a good one. The Raiders next week. Or the New England Patriots the week after. Those are probably weeks where you get a bounce back from Jalen Waddle. The shitty part is that we've already passed the trade deadline in most fantasy football leagues, so you can't play the fun game of, hey, I'm going to go buy him super low. If you have him, you're going to roll with him, and those are the 2 weeks that I really look at and go, he could bounce back there. The Raiders and the Patriots both have number ones that will probably travel with Tyreek Hill, and I don't believe much in the rest of what they have. The Raiders specifically. New England still got Jack Jones, Marcus Jones, who is at least kind of interesting to me because he can run with Tyreek Hill. Or Jalen Waddle, excuse me. God almighty, I jump roped those two names. Gambit fan, Doug Peterson losing a locker room and overstaying his welcome. I am shocked. Shocked, I tells you. Yeah, it's not shocking. And you actually called it from early on. And I'll give you props on that. Matt Penn, will the Jaguars ever get any actual high-end free agents ever? I think playing in London multiple times a year is a huge turnoff for players. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I always said the London thing with Jacksonville was completely stupid for that reason, because nobody wants to go do that twice a year. Nobody wants to get uprooted and have to go overseas 2 separate times a year. It's bad enough when you randomly have to do it once. You're signing with a team that I'm guaranteed I have to do it twice. Jacksonville has always overpaid for guys that are not elite, because elite guys won't give them the time of day in a watch shop. You also don't have a lot of elite guys that switch teams via free agency. The problem with Jacksonville is that they're just viewed as dysfunctional. If ownership is a really big thing to you, they're not great there. If the front office is a really big thing to you, they're not great there. Head coach turnover is insane. They have the highest roster turnover in the league. It's just a lot of things that they need a stable entity to come into this team. They need to do what the Detroit Lions did with Brad Holmes, which is a guy that is universally respected around the league, has had multiple opportunities to get jobs. And you just say, Joe Douglas with the Jets. Both of those guys were given carte blanche to do whatever pretty much they wanted. And that's how you got them to take jobs with more mediocre franchises. And in large part, I think they have both done phenomenal jobs. Brad Holmes changed the culture. Joe Douglas has not quite done that yet. He changed the roster. And that's what leads to a Jet team that's very talented, but not as good as you want them to be. That's where Jacksonville's been forever because they keep hiring retread guys like Trent Baalke and Doug Peterson. Will they ever get there? Who knows? Ownership groups are hard to figure out. Some of the best in the NFL were awful in the beginning. They learn as they go. And that would be what I would be hoping for if I was a fan of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Kevin, the PRF, NFL question. NFL seems to try to get the NFL to have a large middle class, but it seems the result is still haves and have-nots. Should the league do anything about it? The NFL does a better job than any league in all of sports at competitive balance. And here's why I say that. Because you have an aggressive salary cap that you can toy with. You can't toy with it the way you toy with it in the NBA. If you're good in the NBA and you draft well and you luck up and get a Victor Wembanyama or something like that, you're going to be good for 10 years. The NFL doesn't have that. You hit a high-end franchise quarterback, you're going to be pretty good at minimum for an extended period of time, like the Cincinnati Bengals. Problem is you got to put the things around them. What can the NFL do to fix the haves and the have-nots? There's not really anything. To me, the NFL is the best run institution in American business. We should all look to the NFL and Chick-fil-A for how to run our shit. Because the NFL will happily listen to what their fan base says, and if they figure out you're not into this shit, they'll stop. Kneeling for the anthem and shit like that. Did you notice we haven't talked about that in forever? You know why? Because they don't show the anthem anymore. Because they don't even play that game. We show up and we get kickoff. They also told guys, hey, cut that shit out. And I respect that. The NBA steers into it. That's why their ratings are fucking awful. Hey, you want to have political stances? Cool. You should broadcast those in press conferences like Steve Kerr and Greg Popovich. Weird. People don't watch your shitty ass product because they get tired of being told what to do by people like you. The NFL doesn't do that. Now, as for the parameters they can put on haves and have-nots, I can only control you from being so stupid. The Cleveland Browns are the ones that did something nobody else would do and give a fully guaranteed contract to a quarterback that only 3 teams in the NFL wanted. I can't control that. I can't tell you not to do that. I have to kind of let you fend for yourself. And that's why you have teams like the Browns and the Jets and the Jaguars that are notoriously in the bottom side of the league because they have to fend for themselves and they can't do it. But should they do anything? I would say no. I think you're good right where you are. And the haves are haves because they earned being haves, and the have-nots are have-nots because they've earned being have-nots. Gambit said, I don't know, Jeremy, Ben Johnson sounds like an Eagles coach to me just to get the circus to leave town. I think he would take the Eagles job in a heartbeat because they're so solid. But I don't know that the job's going to open. If it did, I would say that would be a job he would be very interested in. Sir Jimothy, which college football coach do you think, if any, might jump to the NFL, either as a coordinator or head coach? The coordinator thing, you're going to keep seeing. This is an imitation league. And the fact that Jeff Hafley has been as good in Green Bay as he has been schematically, that's going to lead to teams trying to pilfer guys out of college. I will be a little bit shocked if it's another Power 4 head coach that jumps for a coordinator job. I won't be shocked if they keep trying to pilfer. I also won't be shocked if some of these high-end coordinators end up in the NFL because they don't want to play the NIL game. As for which college coaches should, I've always thought James Franklin struck me as more of an NFL coach than a college guy because he's not as Johnny Rah-Rah. I think he is a good X's and O's guy, but he needs an offensive coordinator. So if I had to answer it, I don't think there is one that makes a ton of sense right now. Dan Lanning is also another one that I look at and go, that could be an NFL guy, and it wouldn't shock me in the least. Most of these guys they're college guys. If you're still here, it's because you enjoy doing this. Curtis Davis, how worried should I be that teams would want to poach Jesse Minter from us? I would be worried a lot. because in this cycle, as I said earlier, you don't have a lot of great candidates, and there's a lot of beauties in the eye of the beholder. And I would be worried that teams are going to see Jesse Minter as a younger guy and see Mike McDonald and go, that's the guy that we can entrust to fix our defense. We'll pair him with a high-end offensive guy, and that's our solution. So I would be legit worried about it. I'm not so sure it happens this year. I'm not sure Jesse Minter wants it to happen this year. But I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. Joshua Pennick said, surprise Petsing's on the list. He's not bad, but it feels like Nick Rallis is the better cards coordinator. I was a little shocked he was as high as he was. I'm not shocked he's on the list. If you don't know what I'm talking about, the Pro Football Network put out a top 15 NFL head coaches list that I read earlier in the show, and Drew Petzing was at 9. That's what happens with offensive coordinators that are running teams that are better offensively than we thought they would be. I don't necessarily think he fits into that. I think the offense is about what I thought it would be. What's shocking me is how much better the defense is than I ever thought it would be, because the defense doesn't have a whole lot of talent. Jack S., what do I do with Kyle Pitts and Evan Ingram? Kyle Pitts, I think, is a start every week. He's getting better. He's getting more involved in the offense. It's not always leading to the production that you want, but sometimes it is. Evan Ingram, I don't really want anything to do with Jacksonville. I'm not saying I would cut him, but between the injuries and just the light role, he should have a huge role where this team is, but when they're fully healthy, he doesn't. Because Brian Thomas Jr. and Gabe Davis and the mishmash of other guys they have, they just pill for each other. I don't think he's a tight end 1 at this point. I haven't thought that all year long. And the injuries are just kind of compounding that. If you've got both, I'm playing Kyle Pitts damn near every single week. Take a hit of my little douche flute. What Super Bowl story are you rooting for? Chiefs' 3rd Super Bowl in a row. Good God, no. I will never be the guy going, man, I hope the team that's already won 2 of them wins another one. Lions-Bills' 1st Super Bowl, that would be my one. Lamar beats the odds of projected running back to Super Bowl quarterback. I would not mind seeing that. I would love to see that. So we never had to talk about the fact Lamar Jackson's not a winner ever again. I don't have a problem with Lamar. People think I do. I don't. It's just I'm telling you what he's putting on the field, and people get pissed off about it. I'm giving you facts, and facts don't care about your feelings. I would love to see Lamar win a Super Bowl. I would love to see Baltimore win a Super Bowl. That's a well-run franchise that deserves to have that pay off. I don't think it's going to, but I wouldn't mind seeing it. Or the Commanders' epic worst to first Super Bowl. Okay, I almost want to change my answer to that one. I will go Lions, Bills, Commanders are my 1A, 1B, 1C. I would love to see all 3 of those teams win a Super Bowl. Now, low-key, I'm a Jets fan, so my real one is Aaron Rodgers throws full-on Johnny Cash double birds to everybody and doesn't lose another game this season. But that's not going to happen. Joshua Brooks, who do you even think would want the Jaguars coaching job? I have a weird feeling that Jacksonville's the team that makes a hard run at Cliff Kingsbury, makes a hard run at Bobby Slowick, makes a hard run at one of these young offensive guys to try to correct the offense, and they'll bring in a fired defensive guy, whether it's Robert Saleh or Dennis Allen or somebody like that, to be more of a game management kind of guy. Yes, I do see the irony that I just said 2 of the worst game manager coaches in NFL history. But that's more where I think Jacksonville ends up. They are cheap in places they shouldn't be cheap, and they spend in places they shouldn't spend, which is a horrible way to run an NFL franchise. Kevin the PRF, by the way, about my have and have nots question, one idea a friend and I threw around was salary cap varying between teams based on last year's record, like the draft. The only problem I have with that is that you're now punishing a team for being successful, and you're punishing a team that may have a handful of homegrown talents that they're trying to keep in place that hit free agency, and now those guys just hit the market. I'm not a fan of a varying salary cap at all. The NBA, the aprons and shit like that, I think it is absolutely asinine. Now, that being said, I understand what you're saying, because you're trying to Look, I'm an old school Ronald Reagan Republican. I'm not a fan of trying to save people from themselves. I'm a fan of giving you the tools and you do with that what you will. There are teams that don't do that well. And look, I could sit here and talk for the next 45 minutes about why that happens. Every mediocre have-not in the NFL, I could tell you why they are that. 5 years of doing what I'm doing right now, usually in an ESPN radio studio, now in my house, I've learned a lot about these teams and what it is that they fuck up on a daily basis. If anybody wants to know, feel free to ask the question and I will answer it for you. But knowing what I know there, it's hard for me to put the bowling rails up, to put the bumpers up for bad teams to protect them from themselves. Kelvin Joyner, even the worst NFL team is only a handful of good players from being relevant again. You're exactly right. Or one elite quarterback. One elite quarterback fixes damn near all your problems. Look at the Washington Commanders roster. Look at how little of it turned from year to year. Yes, they added pieces that were Dan Quinn guys, largely that he brought from the Dallas Cowboys, that were culture setters to a point. Other than that, you've got a lot of guys that were still, they're still in the same place they were a year ago. Look how much better that team is now because they have a competent quarterback that they believe in. Matthew Hoffman said, Kevin, I don't think that works when different owners or ownership groups just have different amounts of money to spend. As well as you can't tell a team how to spend its money when it's not the NFL's. So the thing you just said there about money to spend is interesting. That is not nearly as big of a thing as I thought it was. Having an owner that's got $1 billion in liquid cash, it helps. It really only helps in how you can structure contracts. All of these guys have boatloads of money. All of these guys have access to even astronomical amounts of money. That's not really the problem with some of these bad teams. Now, some of them are notoriously cheap. That is becoming less of a thing because the NFL is damn near forcing you to spend money. They're doing everything in their power to do it without actually forcing you to do it the way the NBA does, which I've always thought is dumb. Hey, your team sucks, but you have to spend $150 million in salary cap. Awesome. I'm just going to give shit money to a shit player, and I'm going to put them on the bottom of my roster to appease you, and then that's going to come off, and I'm going to do it all over again. The Charlotte Hornets. Gambit, I was watching the Canadian Football League because of their playoffs, and while some of their shootouts can be fun, yeah, 3-down football is an abomination before God. Why do they do that? I have absolutely no idea. I watch Canadian football as a guy that works in football for a living, and 9 times out of 10, I'm so damn confused about the rules that I just go, I'm never going to figure this out and turn it off. Gambit also asked, since you're answering questions about why fuck-up teams fuck up, I have to know, how and why do the Chargers keep charging? Is it really just black magic bad luck or something institutional? With the Chargers, it's 100% institutional. The thing that would encourage me is that they did go hire Jim Harbaugh, and they gave him a lot of control. Joe Hortiz he's a well-thought-of guy in this league. The Chargers have been notoriously cheap. Oddly enough, they have drafted reasonably well because after Ryan Leaf, they basically overhauled the entire front office. And they've hit on a lot of guys. They're just institutionally cheap. And it is ironic that you asked me that because I said that wasn't really a problem for most teams. And you asked me about the team that I think it is a problem. They're notorious for that. The only time I've ever seen the Chargers really go for broke at head coach was with Marty Schottenheimer, and that was the best time in the franchise's history outside of some time in the Dan Fouts era. I feel like Jim Harbaugh can do that. I think Jim Harbaugh can win a Super Bowl in this league, and he's damn dead set on doing it. So that's encouraging that the Spanos family has changed their ways a bit and gotten less involved in the day-to-day, and they just let the football people do it. But the Chargers there's no black magic to it. It's very simple. They're cheap as fuck. and I can tie you backwards to a lot of decisions that they have made that it's pretty easy to go, oh, that's some of them have worked. The Michael Vick deal, that worked because you got LaDainian Tomlinson out of it. Your impetus for doing it was not nearly as intelligent as you would want it to be. Austin Groves asked, what's the chance Ben Johnson stays in Detroit? I will say 50-50. I would not have said that until probably the last 5 weeks because I thought somebody was just going to bowl him over with an offer. I'm getting to the point of I don't think it's the offer. I knew it wasn't the money. That was dumbly reported by a lot of letter entities and big national sports chains. I can tell you for a damn fact that's not the case. He was not asking for some Brinks truck. He was asking for stability. And if I was being honest, there's probably a chance that he wishes he had taken the Washington job, but he didn't because he didn't believe in the ownership group. He thought they were meddling, and that was not an uncommon deduction from head coaching candidates. Sir Jimothy asks, have you ever watched Australian football? Pretty entertaining, still confusing, though. Check it out one day when the NFL isn't in season. I would be interested to watch that. Australian people also scare the shit out of me because they're just tougher than we are. It's almost like watching hockey players with weirder accents play football, and I will check it out, but I'm skeptical as to my enjoyment of it. Let's see. Kevin the PRF, how do they fuck up so well for so long in Dallas? As much flack as Jerry gets, his drafts are usually pretty good, and he doesn't seem to meddle with his coaching staff. He 100% meddles with the coaching staff. He is the only owner in sports that does a radio show on a network he owns. Jerry Jones is the answer. In Dallas, there are two kinds of people. People that tell Jerry what he wants to hear and people that are not employed by the Dallas Cowboys. There's no in between. And now you said their drafts have been good. Let's I'm going to check the videotape on that because I actually already know this. I just don't know the names off the top of my head. And I feel like we may or may not have done this on the show one day, but doesn't hurt to do it again. All right. Dallas Cowboys this year. Yeah, you had a decent class. I think every one of those guys on the high side has at least been a contributor to some point, and I liked all of them. I mean, their class looked very similar to something I would do. Now, let's go back to a class where we can quantify it, which the first one we could do that with would be 2021. You hit Micah Parsons, who fell in your lap. He was a top 10 talent. Most of us viewed him as a top 5 talent, but he had some off-the-field issues. He fell right in your lap. You took the guy. You did the same thing with CeeDee Lamb, by the way. That fell in your lap. That's not you being really smart. That's just you being the guy that stops the slide. Then you took Kelvin Joseph in the second round, who was an absolute disaster. Osa Odighizuwa he's been fine. I don't think he's anything to write home about, but he's been fine. Jabril Cox, that was a massive slide, and he's had a role. Chauncey Golston, meh. Nashawn Wright, not even on the team. Josh Ball, Simi Fehoko, Quentin Bohannon. There's nothing really to it. Then you go back to 2020. They took CeeDee Lamb. He fell right in their laps. Trayvon Diggs, most overrated player in the NFL, and it's not close. Neville Gallimore, not been worth a shit. Been completely irrelevant. Reggie Robinson, nope. Tyler Biadasz, he was fine, but you didn't re-sign him because you've had to spend money in other places and you didn't have the money. Then he's gone to Washington and been fine. Bradley Anae, he's bounced around the league like a ping pong ball. Go back the year before that. Tristan Hill, irrelevant. Connor McGovern, journeyman. Tony Pollard, overrated. Michael Jackson, didn't really do anything for you. Joe Jackson, I'm not even sure he's still in the league. Year before that, Leighton Vander Esch, injury issues that we all knew about when he got drafted. Connor Williams, not with his team anymore and was an absolute sieve for you at times. Michael Gallup, he's just a receiver. Dalton Schultz, homegrown talent that you didn't pay the second time. Taco Charlton the year before. I mean, I'd keep doing this. I see Jerry's fingerprints all over their drafts, and it tends to be the ones that I go, well, that's not good. It's not good, and they all have Jerry Jones fingerprints on them. Jerry's the problem. As long as he lives and breathes, the Dallas Cowboys are irrelevant. Or as long as he owns the team. And he's going to do that until he's in a pine box. So I just look at Dallas. Dallas, for me, is one of those teams that we have like 26 teams in the NFL because we have 6 that are invariably irrelevant, and Dallas is one of them. Matthew Hoffman, change of direction. As a Michigan fan, was our natty just a once and done, and now we suck for 20 years? Otherwise, can you give me something to be hopeful for? Was the natty simply Harbaugh? Look, you lost an elite coach. In college football today, it is so easy for players to move that this season was invariably going to be a disaster. Your offense got gutted. You have Donovan Edwards and nothing else. As for, was it a one-off? I don't think it was necessarily a one-off. I think Michigan will be competitive. It's going to be a little tough to win national titles in this era. You're going to have to be really good in the portal. You're going to have to be able to recruit really well, and you're going to have to be able to retain those players. I don't know what Michigan does NIL-wise. I've never really heard anything about it. So I don't know that they can compete on the national landscape with what SEC teams are doling out, with what Ohio State is doling out. It's not ironic that Ohio State went all the way in this year because they looked at Michigan and went, nope. You don't have it, and you're not going to have it this year. As for in the future, who knows? It's still a glamour job. Michigan is still a glamour job, and I think it always will be. And Jim Harbaugh really brought that back to the forefront. So, I mean, I think you're going to be fine. This year's not good, and that's coming from a Florida State fan. So I'm very sensitive to your not goodness of this year. Kelvin Joyner, why is there such a variation in the quality of life players get per team? You hear about the players' surveys that they do, and some teams score terribly. That doesn't affect free agency? It does. It 100% does. And the teams that get railed in that routinely have been Washington and Arizona and bad teams because the owner doesn't spend the money. Arizona a year ago had a hole in the floorboards of their fucking weight room. Well, guess what? Then that survey came out, and now we all know it. And now it's been fixed. That survey does one great thing, and it holds owners accountable because your fan base and other players and the media, we all find out about the bullshit you're doing behind closed doors. Most of it is because ownership is cheap. Some owners will spend all of the money in the world. Mark Cuban, I think, is a complete dipshit between the ears. As an owner of a franchise, unbelievably good. And I shouldn't say he's a dipshit. He's smart at what he's smart at, but when it comes to politics, he's a moron. And he runs his mouth a lot. He was as good of an owner as we've ever had in any sport because he spent above and beyond to make sure his guys were treated first class. And there's a reason that they did pretty well at getting guys to want to sign on dotted lines. They didn't get the highest end guys, but they always put together a cohesive, deep roster. There's also a reason that the Washington Commanders sucked on ice and blew dead bears until Dan Snyder was gone. Now that he's gone, they don't. That's not ironic because that ownership group is spending money at a high level. And there's a reason that players want to play there now because that's a glamour franchise that if you win a Super Bowl there, they will build statues of you. And players are seeing that. Marshawn Lattimore was one of them. Low-key, little piece of information I have, Marshawn Lattimore preferred going to the Washington Commanders to going to the Kansas City Chiefs. That should tell you everything you need to know. Gambit fan, if Kalen DeBoer keeps coaching Alabama to irrelevance, can we safely call him a Michael Penix carry job, or is there something else going on there where he's doing what he can even if it's failing? Kalen DeBoer is an interesting case study to me because X's and O's, he's about as good of a coach as we have in college football. I didn't really ever love the hiring of him at Alabama because it's such a jump. And now he's seeing big boy defense for really the first time. He had it at Indiana, but he wasn't there for long. And if I'm not mistaken, the year he had Michael Penix, as long as he had Michael Penix, he avoided damn near every good team except Ohio State. And so I think he has to evolve as a coach. He has to evolve as a recruiter because he was never a good one. And that's where I think his shortcomings are going to show, is that he can't compete on the national landscape with Kirby Smart and Steve Sarkisian and Dan Lanning. And getting in the transfer portal, Alabama's name will carry you a ways, but you still have to be able to close deals, and I'm not sure that he can. So I don't have a problem with DeBoer necessarily. I thought it was a bit of an odd hire. Sir Jimothy said, Jalen Hurts, DeMar Hamlin, and Deron Bland are more overrated than Diggs. I will say they're all in about the same boat. I can't say that they're more overrated, but I will say all of them are overrated. Trayvon Diggs is like Cam Taylor-Britt or Big Play Slay. Yeah, you can make highlight reel interceptions, but you keep getting burned. That's my problem with Trayvon Diggs, is if you take away the 10 best plays of his season, he's below average or worse. He's a replacement level player, down in, down out. Red Sea, hey, it's Baby Tank again. It is. We've got the Baby Tank over there playing in the leaves. Just enjoying his best life. I do find it funny that I didn't tell it what Tank looked like, and I still found a way to make it look like a baby tank. Has very large eyes that I feel like are staring right at me, but that's my own problem. Curtis Davis, what's the difference between being a smart draft pick and falling in your lap? Is it decided by the person, the team, or the GM? A falling in your lap draft pick is a smart draft pick. I just don't necessarily give you the credit for it. All right, I'll give you an example. Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is probably the best example of this I have. We heard some things about Micah in the pre-draft process that if you did your due diligence, it was not hard to cut through and realize that he's actually not a bad guy. The stories, A.T. Perry was another one of these, that all you had to do was really do your due diligence and spend the money to go get the answer you were looking for. And now you've got a top 5 player in this class that falls in your lap at 12. I give you credit for spending the money to get the answer. I don't necessarily give you credit for going, hey, this player shouldn't be here and we need this player. I'm going to go draft him. Where I really give you credit is, and I'll be honest with you, Amon-Ra St. Brown, kind of the same way. If you were even a half-assed evaluator, you knew by the time the 4th round rolled around, this is dumb, and he shouldn't still be here. He's a great draft pick, and I give a lot of credence to the coaching staff for making him all he could be. I don't necessarily give Brad Holmes all that much. It's not that I don't give him all that much credit. I do. It's a great find. I don't understand why you didn't do it earlier. Like, if you were as dead sold on him as I was screaming in the 2nd round, why is this guy still on the board? And if you don't believe me, you can find that video right here on our YouTube channel. Bradley Presley, is there any hopes for the Colts being good in the next 5 years? And if so, how do you get there? You bail water on Anthony Richardson. There's no saving this. It is abundantly clear. But I can't make you see it. If you don't want to see it, you're not going to. And one of the things that has always been that looked at Anthony Richardson and said he should go in the top 5. Not one. Because we all knew he's so far away. But Indianapolis really needed a quarterback, and he was the one that fell. And your path is you keep drafting well and you bail water on Anthony Richardson. And you just admit the mistake. We have our first super chat. It's from Red Sea, who says, sorry, that button's on another screen and I screwed up. My bad. It's from Red Sea. It said -2 or 3 Dallas defensive backs are weak. Or weak point for 20 plus years. You're absolutely right. That's another thing that I don't ever really get to talk about this, but I kind of laugh at. You do realize that the Madden thing that you get when you play franchise on Madden, Sorry. That was not Red Sea. It was Sir Jimothy. My bad. I saw Red Sea's name, and it's hard running this by yourself. Sir Jimothy asked about, or mentioned that Dallas Cowboy defensive backs have been a weak spot for 20 years. You have certain front offices that don't scout certain positions well. We really zoom down on it when it's quarterbacks. Every team in the NFL, I can tell you a position group that they can't scout for shit. Baltimore Ravens, best team in the NFL at scouting players. They can't find a receiver to save their fucking lives. And I'm going to level with you, Zay Flowers fell in their lap. That was not the one they wanted. That was the one that fell in their lap, which is why I use fell in your lap picks. He's a great player. They liked Jackson Smith and Jigba better. I'm not sure they didn't like Quentin Johnston better, but I don't know that one. I know the other one. And you can do that with every team. There's just certain positions that their scouts don't see well. They don't hit on these guys well. And over time, it really starts to burn you. And with the Dallas Cowboys, it is certainly in the secondary. Red Sea said, to be fair, our owner is one of the least financially sound compared to the likes of Jerry Jones and Robert Kraft. He's talking about the Bidwells in Arizona. You have one of the poorest ownership groups in the league. He's also just a terrible guy from everything I've ever been told. And for me, that makes it even more impressive what Jonathan Gannon's been able to do. But you do deserve a better owner than what you have. Gambit fan said another unfortunate example of falling into your lap was Justin Jefferson falling to the Vikings because someone picked Jalen Reagor, and no, I don't want to talk about it. If you've never seen the video of Rick Spielman finding out that the Eagles took Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson, it is hilarious. I did not love Justin Jefferson as much as everybody else did, and I was wrong. I thought he was a bit of a product of that offense. Minnesota loved Justin Jefferson, and they were very happy that he got there. Joshua Penix said, I think Bidwell's biggest problem will always be his loyalty. Dude could not stomach firing Steve Keim. Also, who's your most overrated, most underrated player currently playing? Ooh. I'll start with underrated. Biasedly, Quincy Williams, I think, is one of the best linebackers in this league, and he doesn't get the credit for it. I will also say, God, there's a lot of those. Most underrated player. Let me look. Let me look at just see if one jumps out as I look at the logos of every NFL team. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is really high on that list for me. Kyle Hamilton is really high on that list for me. Jesse Bates is really high on that list for me. Frankie Louvu is really high on that list for me. That would probably, off the top of my head, that would be, I can write that down and come up with a list and do that at some point next week. I don't want to eschew somebody, but those are the ones off the top of my head. Overrated, Jalen Hurts, Trayvon Diggs. God, there are a million of those guys. Deron Bland. I'm trying to think if there's anybody I'm missing off the top of my head. Joey Bosa. Jalen Ramsey. And he would not have been on my list until probably the last year and a half. Those are the ones off the top of my head. And yes, I can't read. So sorry, Sir Jimothy. That super chat was from him. And sorry, Red Sea, that it wasn't from you. Given Arizona's picking mid to late first round as a divisional winner or wild card loser, what edge rusher would you see being there for them to take in the draft? And that is a damn good question, and our first draft question of the day. Let me look at my list. Based off where they're going to pick, this is a really good edge rusher draft. I will say there's a great chance that you're not going to have the highest of the high. So James Pierce, Nick Scorton, Abdul Carter, Mikael Williams was the one that was the first one that came to my head. Jalon Walker is also up there. Those are both Georgia guys. I love every name I just said. So I believe Pierce, Scorton, and Abdul Carter are probably all three going to go in the first 10 picks. And Arizona will have a chance at them, but then they would have their shot at the slightly rawer Georgia guys that pop in the teens. Kelvin Joyner, off topic, but how do you see the college football season wrapping up? Miami is the only thing keeping me happy this football season, and I need the good times rolling. It's ironic you asked that. It's ironic that you asked that. Let me pull up the CFP rankings from the other night. I don't think there's a great team in college football. And looking at how this is going to break down, of right now you would have Oregon 1, Ohio State 2, Georgia 3, BYU would be, or no, that's not right. You'd have Oregon 1, Georgia 2, Miami 3, BYU is the 4. That then leads to you're going to get probably an Ohio State BYU second round matchup, which I don't like BYU's chances in. I would say your final 4, for me, probably end up being Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia, and Miami. I think they're just better than everybody else. Georgia is terrible offensively, but their defense is so damn good that it's kind of hard for you to look at, is there an offense that I think can go in and beat them? I love Tennessee's defense. And when you can run, things are great. I don't trust Nico Iamaleava. And it doesn't seem that Josh Heupel does either. And I keep going down that rabbit hole with Texas of, do I really trust Quinn Ewers? He has fallen off a cliff for me as a prospect. I love Tennessee, and I would love to see them win a national title. I just think they're a step behind these other teams, but they're recruiting at a very high level. Miami, I think, is going to be a factor. I couldn't even give you a betting favorite. I like Oregon a lot. I like Miami a lot. I think Indiana is a dark horse that could fuck up a lot of people's seasons, especially if they're healthy. So, Jackass, every year I draft really well according to your rankings, and I also draft people like Shaheed and Chase Brown and Stevenson. Then I drop them early when they struggle. How do you not do this? I will be honest with you. I don't touch fantasy teams for 6 weeks. Like, I might make a trade, but in terms of dropping a guy, I notoriously, first of all, I don't play in leagues that don't have IR spots because you're punishing me for no fucking reason. I notoriously draft 1 or 2 guys that are on IR. This year it was Nick Chubb and TJ Hawkinson. I will put them on IR. Then I have extra spots. If I ever have to cut anybody, it's a kicker. I have Chase Brown on damn near every team that I drafted this year because the second the draft was over, I cut my kicker and went and got Chase Brown. That's how I do it. It doesn't work for everybody. I do not give up on guys easily. I also prey on people that do. So even in some of the leagues that I didn't get Chase Brown off the jump, he got dropped early, and I just went and got him. I basically keep a squad of guys that I'm interested in, and I get alerts anytime they hit the waiver wire, and then I go get them. But now, when I'm wrong, that does typhoon me because like last year, I missed out on Puka Nacua because I didn't have anybody I was willing to drop. So there's a blessing and a curse. It can burn you, but it works out more for me than it doesn't. Kevin the PRF, is Howie Roseman the most overrated GM? Hurts bailed him out of wins. A.J. Brown bailed him out of Rager. Can't pick a stable coaching staff to save their life. I think Howie Roseman is a really good trader. I think he's a really good drafter at times. He has not been a great drafter of wide receivers, but he thrives in chaos, and there's a merit to that. I like a GM that doesn't, they look at a fuck up and go, yep, I screwed that up. Let me go fix it. And they do. And then you're never tied to Jalen Rager for an extended period of time or anything like that. You just go build a roster that's good and competent. And I like Howie Roseman. Most overrated GM. Who would I consider that to be? Chris Ballard is really the name I'm wanting to say right here. Because I think he's good, but I don't think he's as good as he's made out to be. I want to say somebody else, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. Yeah, that's probably my answer. It's probably Chris Ballard. Sir Jimothy. Big Mac Brad said Jerry Jones has to be the worst. He is the worst, but he's not overrated because we all know how bad he sucks. Sir Jimothy, how entertaining is it that no one outside of the South can understand Xavier Legette, and we understand him just fine? I met him at the Senior Bowl, and when he opened his mouth, I shit you not, there's got to be a picture of it somewhere because I didn't know I didn't know that was how he talked. And as soon as he opened his mouth, my face, like, I couldn't control my face. The fuck did you just say to me? I didn't think I would. I didn't think that I would ever find an opportunity to be the second most country individual in a building, and Xavier Legette passed me. But he's such a good kid, and he's so nice, and he's just so happy to be here. I really like that kid. Gambit fan, who are the biggest diamond in the rough picks in this year's draft? Someone who won't go first or maybe even second round and leave people going, how the hell did he fall that far? Oh, that's a good question. I have notoriously been good at receivers, so let me give you one of those. Obviously, you're going to have Tito and McMillan and Luther Burden. They're going to go up high. Xavier Restrepo was the first name that came to my mind. Alec Ayumanor is another one. Evan Stewart is another one. I think every one of those dudes are dogs. Alec Ayumanor specifically. And I'm not even ashamed to admit this. I knew he was good. I didn't realize how good he was until he transferred to my Baylor team in college football 25, and I absolutely ruined people's souls with him. And then I went back and started watching tape and went, damn, this kid is really good. That was a low-key benefit of the college football game. Another one I really like is Torrey Horton out of Colorado State. I think he's going to be a late day 2, maybe early day 3 guy that winds up being really, really good. And then I'll go a defensive guy. If Harold Perkins enters this draft, he's not going to go as high as he should. And I love him. And I don't give a damn what anybody has said about him this year. You're entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to be wrong, too. Let me see. Landon Jackson from Arkansas is a guy that I'm just absolutely in love with, but he doesn't really fit the question that you asked me. I really like Jordan Birch out of Oregon. Patrick Payton from Florida State's going to go way lower than he should, and I think he will end up being a productive pro. This season's just, it sucked the life out of every single player in that locker room. Jackson Dart, I mean, I think you already knew I was going to say that. Drew Aller as a quarterback. And yes, I know I've fallen for Penn State quarterbacks before. I think he has a lot of talent, and Penn State's just not really a productive place to make him all that he could be. Nick Singleton from Penn State is a guy that you're going to hear me say his name probably 200 times during the pre-draft process. And I'm literally just going through Rocket Sanders. I'm drunk in love with Le'Veon Moss. I'm drunk in love with. Jaden Ott from Cal. I hope that answers your question because I didn't go every position. I literally just clicked on the first 4 positions I thought of. But I love every single guy that I just said. William Workman said Tennessee will be in the Final Four this year. Damn, I hope so. Gambit fan said, oh, hush, Kevin. Howie's been very good. That's kind of how I feel about Howie Roseman, too. He's really good at what he's good at, and he really sucks at what he sucks at. Jack S. Who do you think is going to be the next conference the NFC goes through next year? Which division will be the next goes through? Will it stay in the NFC North or move to the West? I would say it's going to stay in the North for a couple years. And then it's hard to forecast, but I would say the West is up there. I just believe in San Francisco and Seattle so little that it's hard for me to say the West. I can tell you definitively it's not the South. Let's see. Bradley Presley, wide receiver for fantasy football. Marvin Harrison Jr. versus the Jets, or take a shot in the dark with Deontay Johnson tonight against the Bengals. This feels like a lose-lose situation. It is, and I always defer to play your studs, so I would go Marvin Harrison Jr. The Jets don't move corners around, so there's a great chance he ends up on DJ Reed, who he is bigger than, and Michael Carter III, who he is bigger than. So I don't hate Marv this week. I don't love him either. Big Mac Brad, do you like DJ Moore or Marvin Harrison Jr. more rest of the season? I have an opportunity to trade DJ for Marv straight up. Do it right now and don't think about it. DJ Moore walking off that field and then saying what he said about Matt Eberflus has really pissed off some people with the Bears to the point of he was disgust. I haven't heard any national entity mention that yet. He was discussed on Tuesday. Didn't go anywhere because they wanted a lot, but they are really pissed. Let's see. If you were given the reins, this is from William Workman. If you're given the reins of the Panthers for the next 3 years, what are you doing to build a winning team? I'm not winning another game this year. I'm going to get the number 1 pick in this draft. I'm going to auction it off to the Las Vegas Raiders because I know they will come up here to get Shedeur Sanders. I'm not taking a quarterback this year. I'm going to trot Bryce Young out there for another year, much like the New York Giants did this year with Daniel Jones. I'm going to build the trenches. I'm going to build that defense. I'm going to keep accumulating picks. If I had my druthers, I would have 15 fucking picks in this draft. And if that means I have to trade down on draft night, then I'll do it. I'm going to have a lot of rookies on this team next year. And I'm going to find 7 guys per year that fit the slot that I'm going to ask them to fill. I'm going to go to Dave Canales and Ajiro Avero, and I'm going to try to keep them in place. I'm going to tell Dave Canales, you got 3 years. I will shut that shit down on Dave Canales anytime it is brought up to me until 2028. I'm going to build the trenches, and I'm going to give a chance for a culture to take hold because I do believe in Dave Canales. And I'm going to let Dan Morgan do what he does. And that's how I'm going to fix the Carolina Panthers. I'm going to stay the fuck out of free agency other than the ability to hit some targeted guys that come up and maybe didn't get the best shot where they were. We'll talk about that stuff in the offseason. And I think in 3 years, I can make the Panthers the best team in the NFC North. Or NFC South, excuse me. Big Mac Brad really likes Emeka Ibuka from Ohio State. I don't mind him. I like some of the tape. I think he's a very smooth route runner. The only problem is, why is he not more productive? I've never been able to figure that out because it has not really mattered who the quarterback was. I always hear how good he is, but then there's another receiver on that team that always shines him up. It was Garrett Wilson, then it was Marvin Harrison Jr., now it's what's his name? Jeremiah Smith. I think he is a solid 2 in the NFL. I actually almost said his name when I brought this up. My fear, and the reason that I didn't say it, is I think a team is going to fall in love with his tape and put their fingers in their ears as to what I just said. And so I don't think he's going to go as late as you may. I don't know what you consider late. I still believe Emeka Ibuka probably finds a way into the top 50 picks. And I would be reasonably surprised if he didn't. But that's a good that's a good name to say there. I just don't think he fit the question that I was asked. Oh, my phone buzzed. Okay. What from Sir Jimothy? What first two positions should Dallas draft? I'm thinking strong safety and running back. Do you have an idea of who they should draft first 2 rounds? Well, that depends. That depends on who the coach is. Depends on who you hire to take over this team. You got to have a running back. That's for sure. And I like Ashton Gianti a lot. I am diametrically opposed to ever taking a running back in the first round, so I would not do that. You have been horrifically bad up the middle. Mozzie Smith, shit, he's been terrible, which is shocking to me because I thought he was way better than that. I will say I didn't ever see him as a 4-3 defensive tackle. I saw him as a 3-4 nose. So I would probably consider making a move on Mozzie Smith, trying to build up the interior of that defensive line. The secondary has been fucking terrible. So I would look into that. But for me, it's hard to come away not saying I would take a running back wide receiver in the first 2 rounds. Dallas is going to get the shot to go get somebody like Teteroy McMillan or Luther Burden, I think. And to pair them with CeeDee Lamb is really intriguing to me. Have Jonathan Mingo as the 3, Jalen Tolbert playing as more the 4. And I think that would fix a lot. But that's where I would probably go. Because that's what I see to be their 2 biggest problems right now. Jack S., what are all the teams you think will see a change at quarterback this year? And will Bryce Young ever get a chance again? Will there be any high drafted young quarterbacks playing again? I don't think you're going to get as many quarterback switches this year as maybe a lot of other people do. Just looking at the landscape of the NFL right now, I would say there's a great possibility you see a new quarterback with the New York Jets. I think there's almost 100% chance you see a new quarterback with the Cleveland Browns, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Indianapolis Colts, the Tennessee Titans. That's 5. The Las Vegas Raiders, the Seattle Seahawks, the New Orleans Saints, the New York Giants. That's probably all of them. And Geno Smith would fill one of those. I just think at some point Seattle has to go, this shit's not working, and we have to – we got to go get a young guy. I told you this 2 years ago. You're going to regret not drafting a quarterback. They had the ammo to go get one, and the one I was saying to go get was C.J. Stroud, and they didn't do it. So – I liked his fit there. I did not like his fit in Houston because I thought he could throw go balls to DK Metcalf and haunt people's nightmares. And now, how much better would you be if you had done what I said? Little did I know Houston was not interested in doing that. And Arizona wasn't going to give you a pick that could have become Stroud had Houston taken Will Anderson. I get it. There are a lot of things there, but I do think that's the 9 teams I would say. Jay Wolves said, what do the Falcons need to do in the offseason to build that defense? You need somebody that can rush a fucking passer. For the love of all that's good and holy, I have never seen a team use this much draft capital to get guys to rush the passer. Between Arnold Ebiketie, Troy Anderson, Braylon Trice, and you cannot get after a quarterback. I get it. Braylon Trice got hurt before the season, which didn't help shit. But Matthew Judon's been an absolute disaster. I actually think the secondary has been better than people thought it would be. The safeties we all knew were going to be good because you have two of the better ones in the league. If you can rush a passer, everything else figures itself out. And so if I'm Atlanta, I'm making the all-in move, and I'm going to get a dog. And I don't give a damn who it is. I don't care if you have to go get Khalil Mack as a rental, Joey Bosa as a 2-year fix. I don't give a shit. Go get somebody that can rush the passer. Post-trade deadline, how's your Amon-Ra St. Brown team doing? I actually have somewhere the list of guys that I said last year. I just saw this the other day. It's always funny when I see shit that I've posted and go, oh, yeah, I guess I should evaluate that. Kelvin, I'll tell you what, it's going to be too hard for me to find because there are about 5 million files on this computer. I will find it to rehash that either tomorrow if we have time or one day next week. But several of the guys that I really liked have served to be pretty damn good considering Jaden Daniels was the quarterback of that team. Jackass said, Jimothy, why not line pieces and a new tight end and safety? I think all of those are high-value draft pieces, and you can get late-round value at running back. Dallas is so in need of a running back that they're actually a team that I will say, you know what, if you want to use a 2 on a running back, I ain't going to be mad at you. I don't value safety to be high value. I'm not quite to the point of I would never take one in the first round because you get guys like Kyle Hamilton that I do really believe in. I see guys that play safety fall every single year, and they wind up being meaningful pieces in the NFL. It's the way the league works. All right, I am going to put a pin for just a second. I need to play a couple ads. We don't have ads on these live streams, so I need to play a couple of those. I'm going to play a song in the background because I need a minute. And I need something to drink because I just drank all of my Red Bull. So give me just a second. I'll be right back. You're in the Sportsocracy. I'm Jeremy Greene. That's In the Leaves, baby. Tank Spencer. We'll be back just a second.
Devil in a red dress, call 911, I'm a killer. You know I hate to confess. Bang, bang, got my hand on the trigger. The devil in a red dress, call 911, I'm a killer. You know I hate to confess. Bang, bang, got my hand, bang, got my hand, call
Okay. Sorry about that. William Workman didn't love the first song. Gigi said it was a great one to smoke the wacky tobacco with. So I'll give you a little inside baseball. When we do this from Mullet Manor, I have a folder of songs that we have a YouTube license for. What I didn't know until you said that was that those licenses expire. And then those songs come out of that folder. And that is now actively the only one that I still have a license for. So I will spend my afternoon finding some new ones. It is an arduous process, but there are worse ways to spend an afternoon than sitting in my office watching ESPN and listening to music. So thank you for pointing that out. I didn't know that. I hit a button and shit just happens. So that's the only one we got left. All right, let's get back to the questions. Sir Jimothy asked, chance of this is a super chat. Oh, shit. I think I hit my button. Sir Jimothy asked, is there a chance of a promo where house members can have their own super chat sound for the life of the membership or for a year, or is that too complicated? Just an idea. That is in no way too complicated. We can totally do that. And that actually is a really good segue into the announcement that I wanted to make today. So, we have been asked for a long time to do a handful of things. Uncensored talk has been number one, first and foremost. Here is the problem with doing uncensored talk. Even what we're doing right now is not fully uncensored because all of you have access to it. There is no paywall whatsoever. And there is a possibility that me saying fuck a whole mess of times could upset one of the sponsors. Not likely, but it's always something you have to take in mind. So, I had a fly on my monitor. I just realized you could see that. Thought that was behind the camera. My bad. So we have talked for a long time about how we could do uncensored talk. Tank is at a point where he is pulled in so many other directions that it is going to be difficult for him to be the one that does it. I, on the other hand, have a full studio in my house as we have here. So we have not figured out all the logistics of this, but I will tell you that starting after Thanksgiving, I will be doing an uncensored morning show. Not every morning, because I cannot commit to doing it every morning. I will be doing an uncensored morning show at least 2 days a week. Haven't nailed down what days those will be. They will be behind the membership paywall, which is the House of Reprehensibles. So if you are a member of the YouTube channel, they will be members-only content. What that means is that nobody can see them that aren't members, which means I can actually be uncensored. And I can say all of the things that I've wanted to say. There will be a podcast element of this through iHeart as well. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but we will be starting that after Thanksgiving. It'll have its own branding. It will be on this channel, but it will have its own branding. I really want to call it the Jeremy A. Greene Show because my middle name starts with an A, and I really, really want to do that. I'm not gonna, but I want to. We hope that that is something that you guys would be interested in. Sir Jimothy, I am going to change the House of Reprehensibles. If you're a certain level of member, you get your own super chat song, and I'll load them into my box. I think that's a brilliant idea. Nobody's ever said that before, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. So we'll have all of those things put together in the next, I'll say we'll have them put together by the end of next week of what we're going to call it, when it's going to happen. I just have to look at my schedule. I have to go. I have to be in sales meetings roughly once a week. So I can't do it every day because I have to do this before the show because everybody's gone by the time we're done. So Stephen Tao said we should call it Morning Toast. I think that's an interesting idea. That will be fully uncensored. So I've also had people ask me to do a political show forever. That might have a role in this of like I do one of those a month or something like that. And you would know. It's not like you would get the political thing thrust on you. There's a reason that every person in sports gets to a certain point and they go, hey, I have to start doing politics now because one of them pays way better. I love talking sports and I will always talk sports, unlike some of the others that have gone this path. But I would like to do a show much like what before Jimmy Kimmel was a syrupy bitch, and Adam Carolla used to do, of just fun as hell shit dudes talk about, just dudes talking about dude things the way dudes talk. And that's really what I think I'm going to steer into. But we haven't resolved all those things. You guys got me thinking the last time we did this that's probably not a bad idea. And Tank is already spoken for in the morning, so I would already have to do it by myself. And that would come from the studio or here. Both would work. So Stephen Tao said, I'd rather talk about Queen Elizabeth's bathroom schedule than politics. And I get that. There are a lot of people that feel that way. I am not one of those people. And the last couple days have really shown me that, you know what? I'm not the only person that thinks the way that I do. I'm not the only person that thinks we're undersold. I don't want to be Alex Jones or any of that bullshit, but I would like to have a place where people could just voice their opinions on non-sports things. I'm not going to do that very often. Like I said, probably once a month. But we will do sports and dude stuff in the mornings, starting after Thanksgiving. If anybody has an idea for names there, that I will happily listen to any names that you could possibly have. Okay, I got to get back into the chat to where we were. Apologies. I was about to starve to death, so I had to go cram down. I ate a piece of steak out of my refrigerator like it was an apple, and I crammed down 2 pieces of cheese. So we're good to roll for a little while longer. Let's see, where were we? Kevin the PRF. Gambit, I don't hate Roseman. I do think there's a new sheriff in town. See the Jahan Dotson trade. Adam Peters is a really good GM in Washington. William Workman said, thank God we need to focus on the offensive defensive lines, rebuild for 2 years before we draft a quarterback. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And he's talking about the Carolina Panthers. That's a question he asked me before the commercial break. You've got to build the trenches, or there's no such thing as a quarterback that's going to survive behind it. It's not ironic that the Kansas City Chiefs have the most talented offensive line in the NFL. Now the offense looks worse because they have 2 mediocre left tackles. And guess what? They'll resolve that. Might take a year, but they will resolve that. Gambit said, Jeremy, how do you evaluate centers? I, for the life of me, can't do it, which feels embarrassing given that it is one of the most important positions on the field. Center for me is, I'm not 100% sure I know what you're asking right here in terms of how I evaluate it. I do a lot of evaluations sheerly on the eye test. Because, and I think this is one of the reasons that I have a higher hit rate than a lot of people do, which is you start worrying about technique and technical and some of the best players that have ever played certain positions in the NFL, they weren't technically fantastic. They were just really fucking talented. They really worked at their craft and they're really good at it. I go back to Tyler Linderbaum. All right, every word, if you look at it on a technical scale, everything that you look for in a high-level NFL center, Tyler Linderbaum was not. He was short. He had short arms, blah, 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 blah. But then you watched him on tape, and he just annihilated people. And it was not hard to figure out that guy's going to be a player in the NFL, even though he doesn't measure the right way. I don't worry as much about measurables, to be really honest with you, as a lot of people do. I do want a tackle to have a certain length of arm. That doesn't mean you can't play, and some of these guys that get put into the he's a guard because their arms aren't long enough. And I think you're going to struggle with high-level speed and shit like that in the NFL. In terms of evaluating a center, the beauty of the center position is that we get so few of them every year that I really get to marinate down on the tape. So, all right, I'll give you an example. Let me pull my rankings from this year's class. There's a bug on my screen that it's flying around, is driving me fucking crazy. Okay. So this year I'm not super high on the centers in this class. I have identified a couple that I think could be interesting. Seth McLaughlin. He's really effing smart. He was the kid that played at Alabama, transferred this year to Ohio State. And if you watch his tape at Ohio State, I think there's a good chance he's going to have a role in the NFL. Cooper Mays at Tennessee. I think there's a good chance that he's going to have a decent starting position in the NFL. Parker Brailsford from Alabama is my number one center. He's the only one I look at and go, that's an immediate starter. That's it. In terms of even on my watch list of centers, I don't break 15. So I can really spend 3 or 4 days watching every guy that I think could get drafted, and I start to see trends, and I start to find guys that I really like, and I like the tape, and that's kind of how I set my rankings for center. They get their own day or 2 days, and when you start comparing them against each other, that makes it easier to evaluate, as opposed to just watching a guy in a phone booth and saying, hey, can he play in the NFL or not? I know damn well there are going to be a handful of guys in this class that are going to make NFL centers. You start comparing them against each other, it gets a little easier. I hope that helps. If it doesn't, elaborate on your question. If you're looking for a technique thing, I can do that too. It's just, you'd have to tell me it's what you're looking for. Sir Jimothy, Rashee Rice and Stephon Diggs, both on IR. Should I cut one? Rice is on his IR now. Diggs is on the bench for now. And, I mean, if it's a redraft, then you can cut them both. If you're in a dynasty, I can't say I would cut them. If it's just a couple keepers, then yeah, you could cut Stephon Diggs. I would probably keep Rashee Rice in that IR spot just to have the option to keep him a year from now. But yeah, if it's a keeper and you only get to keep 2 guys, then you can cut Stephon Diggs. If it's a dynasty, I can't cut either one of them. If it's a redraft, you can cut both of them. Okay, Kevin the PRF asked a question I'm not sure I'm understanding. How does a team like the Giants, Joe Shane and Brian Daboll, know they need to tank for a quarterback but still can't tank to save their jobs? That's a rant that I will go on one day. I was going to do it today, and then honestly, I just looked at the clock and realized it was 1:48 and went, well, shit. That's the biggest problem that teams that live in this vicious cycle have, is that you only give coaches 3 years. And if you don't hit everything off the jump or get lucky enough for a franchise quarterback to fall in your lap, then you're fucked by the fickle finger of fate. And that's how I feel things happen for Brian Daboll. He was almost a victim of his own success. He made Daniel Jones, against one of the worst schedules in the league, look like a competent NFL quarterback, and he never got the shot to take another one. And now he's going to go down with that ship. And whether he could have been a good NFL head coach or not, I don't know that we'll ever know, because I don't know that he'll go another shot. But the 1 year he could have gotten a quarterback, his quarterback played above his skis. They gave him a new deal, and basically your GM screwed you. So how do you know? It's obvious as hell. You know, how do I know when it's time to tank? Because you can look. I saw 8 teams in camp in the preseason. I am not shocked at where any of them are other than the New York Jets. And they looked so good the day I saw them that I think I got duped. Now, they might go on a run with Jeff Ulbrich. Who knows? But they're the only one that I'm even vaguely surprised by. Sir Jimothy, Jackass, I for sure think we should go safety. That's why I said strong safety. I think Jake is okay enough at tight end. I would agree. Jake Turd Ferguson is a pretty solid player in your tight end room. Red C asking what it is about Mikael Williams that I like. What I like is that he's not going to go where I thought he was going to go, because this year hasn't gone as well for him as you would expect. He, according to Red Sea, he says he gets schemed. Hold on, I went away from your chat, from your message, from your comment. When I watched his last year's tape, it seemed like he was getting schemed up as opposed to beating tackles outright. There is an element to that. He is an athletic freak. He kind of falls into that Trayvon Walker thing of, you're so damn athletically gifted, I'm going to be able to figure out a way to use you. He's better against the run right now than he is as a pass rusher, and he's insanely fucking smart. The problem is that he's a little bit lazy. I want a good coach to get a hold of him to teach him some of those techniques, because he has every raw piece you could ever want. And look, I get it. You're a Cardinal fan. You remember Isaiah Simmons. Isaiah Simmons had all the raw tools too. He wasn't coached well. And if you don't coach up that guy, then yeah, they become a complete bust. But you put them in the right system, you coach them up, you don't expect necessarily a ton of them off the jump. That could become interesting. I think he has not plateaued with Kirby Smart. I have long thought Kirby Smart has specific kinds of guys that don't necessarily prosper in his defense. I think Mikael Williams is one of them. I do believe he will go to the NFL and probably get better. Now, there have not been a lot of those guys. Most of them turn into Nakobe Dean, where he was an absolute stud in college. They go to the NFL and they're fine. I like the kid. I think he's in that second tier of pass rusher. The question you originally asked me was, who could be there for your team? That is who could be there, unless you start losing games, because those top three guys won't be there. Let's see. Bradley Presley. The Colts missed out on Bowers, who they tried to trade up for last year. Is there a weapon at tight end in the draft they could target? Also need help at corner and coverage linebacker. Tight end this year is, I'll say it's pretty damn similar to last year. There is one just absolute jewel in this class, and then there's a significant fucking drop off. Colston Loveland is the best tight end in this class. It's not even close. Then you get into the Tyler Warrens and the Gunnar Helms and Ben Urasek and Oscar Delp, Luke Lachey. Colston Loveland's going in the first round. And anybody that tells you he's not, it's out of their fucking mind. Because he is about as complete of a tight end as you'll ever see. I would love to see him end up in Indianapolis. I'm not sure that that's the path you would go. I think it's more likely you would go corner there, because the back end of that defense has been so bad. I would say it's more likely you go tight end than you try to get one of those guys later down the line. There's a kid out of Bowling Green, Harold Fannin, I think is his name, that I like a lot, and he is stupidly athletic. I haven't dug into the tape enough to really slot him yet, but he's interesting. I'll put it that way. Stephen Tao said nothing quite fucks up your Friday quite like it only being Thursday. I feel like we should put that on a shirt. Bing Mac Brad, who would you rather have at quarterback, Daniel Jones or Jared Lorenzen? Neither. Who would I rather have? Daniel Jones. Jared Lorenzen weighed about 400 pounds at the end, so I can't go the hefty lefty. But I don't want Daniel Jones either. I mean, for me, I would rather have Mac Jones than either one of them, and that should tell you a lot. Fantasy football question from Sir Jimothy. Start Liget, Odunze, Waddle, or Gabe Davis this week? I just did my rankings for the week, so give me a minute and I will and I will tell you. LMNO. Damn, I got too much shit on this computer. This is infuriating tonight. Okay, let's see. Who did you ask me again? Jalen Waddle, Leggett, Adunze, Gabe Davis. I tell you definitively it's not Gabe Davis. It's likely they will start Mac Jones, and I am good. The first one there, they are right on top of each other. I have Leggett ahead of all of them. I go Leggett, Waddle, Adunze. Because I do feel like there's a great chance Adunze is going to get a lot of Christian Gonzalez because he plays on the outside so often. Oh, let's see. GG Gambling, do you think the Rams will pull the magic rabbit out of the hat for the NFC West? I feel like either this year or for sure next year is Stafford's last ride. What would you do in either situation with Stafford? I do not think you're pulling that rabbit out of the hat this year. I do think there is a possibility that you can do it in a last ride next year. The defense is just too damn young. I mean, you're going to run into games. Even if you, let's just say out of some sheer struggle, look, you were able to win the division this year, you would get fucking slaughtered by any really high-level offensive team with a lot of weapons. I'm specifically thinking about the Green Bay Packers. And I don't even think you want to make the playoffs this year. You want to saddle up for that last ride with Stafford next year. Have that high pick because there are a lot of talented guys in this class. So I think the Rams year is next year. I just think you're too far behind the 8 ball this year. Let's see. Jack S., what teams do you think are just a few changes from a Super Bowl, as in they change a position or a coach, they are good as gold? Seattle, to me, is the first team I thought of when you said that. The Jets are pretty high up there. I'm going to answer this in a way that you didn't ask it, but I'm more prepared to answer it this way. The teams that I think are just a head coach away, I think the New York Giants could be really good in a year. Not Washington Commanders good, but I think they could be really good in a year with a coach and a quarterback. Because you have a front that fixes a lot of shit. You need to invest in the line, but you've got pieces that I believe in. I've always said I thought they were poorly coached, just watching them. I think the Jets are a head coach away if everybody stays in place. Seattle is a quarterback away. You give Seattle a legit starting NFL quarterback, and that team could be terrifying. One change away. I would like to say the Bears. The only problem is that I don't know that there's a coach that can make Caleb Williams work to the level that he has to. Contending for a Super Bowl. It's so hard for me to say that because for me, it's Kansas City, it's Detroit, and it's everybody else. All right, I'll give you the best answer I got. Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills with a better head coach would be right there with Kansas City and Detroit, but Sean McDermott is not that guy, and he's never going to be that guy, and he looks oddly like Ron Howard. Big Mac Brad, Jackson Dart just seems like he could be a Seahawk to me. I would absolutely love that. Kevin the PRF, how much longer do Stafford and Rodgers play? I would say Stafford and Rodgers both play another year. I don't think either one of them are going out like this. Could be wrong, been wrong before. But Rodgers seemed like he was having a shitload of fun on Thursday night. I'll be interested to see how this week goes with the Cardinals. 2026 is when I look at getting a young quarterback again for the Panthers, with that class looking like one of the best classes in a while. That's from William Workman. I can't tell you that I'm jumping up and down about that class. I do really like Arch Manning and what he could potentially provide. I'm not as high on everybody else as it seems like. I like Nico Iamaleava. I don't know where he's going to fall in. I'm really interested to see Dante Moore at Oregon next year. There are a handful of other guys that I think could get there. That's the difference between now and then, is that I don't feel like there are guys that are going to jump up in the last half of this college football season to be even projected as franchise guys. So I see your point. For me, that class is Arch Manning and a bunch of question marks. Gambit, why does Mike Gesicki do the gritty? Does he not know children are watching? I'm not 100% sure what that means. I'm also not really sure what the gritty is. It's a really stupid dance that gets on my nerves. But I don't know why he does that, because he's a big, dumb bear. Kevin PRF said this commercial break was brought to you by Red Bull. It was, and actually my Red Bull became a monster. Pain and suffering Jets fans everywhere from Gigi. Yeah, we're a sad one. We're a sad group for sure. Oh wow, we got a lot of comments to get to here. We're talking about the song Panthers extending Chuba Hubbard. Oh, let me give you my 30-second take on the Panthers extending Chuba Hubbard. I knew about it. I saw the number. I laughed, and I don't care. He's still, to me, not a great NFL running back. He can run between the tackles. He doesn't do shit else. I actually don't like that deal at all. And I think it's a bad move. I think it's a bad move from a desperate franchise. And that did give me a little pause with Dan Morgan of, why the fuck are you spending $9 million on a running back? A running back that's better right now in a contract year than he's ever been before. Those never tend to work out. But there's not a ton of guaranteed money there, so they can get away from it pretty easily. William Workman, anybody else want the game tonight to be a 50 to 53 point game for fantasy football glory, or is it just me? I would like to see a lot of points. I just want to be entertained on a Thursday. I can't tell you how many of these games I've turned off and just been done with. GG Gambling asked, what was the name of that first song? It's Baron Gates' Devil. And I actually had a bunch of songs by that particular guy, and my license expired on all of them. Gambit fan William Workman said he loved the first song, just a little shocking for a sports show. I would agree with that. I like that song. We used to use it for fantasy football, and apparently its license is a lifetime. Gambit, is Tyler Shuck actually good, or is this just Bo Nix, I'm bigger and older than you, and stop hitting yourself? I like Tyler Shuck. The injuries scare the shit out of me. He is a quarterback that I would feel pretty good taking a fifth-ish round flyer on, because he is stupidly talented. The entire industry thought he was going to be the number one pick in the NFL draft until the injury started mounting up. And then he bounced from Oregon to Texas Tech, now to Louisville. And I see a talented quarterback in there, but I can't invest much draft capital because he is so injury prone. Let's see. All right, we had some comments about the wordy dirds in the new morning show. Jekyll said, "Hope we're interested in a morning show. I'm effing excited for this. Let's fucking go. I'm excited for it as well." William Workman, drunken morning show for the show name. Well, I mean, usually I'm not still drunk in the morning. I mean, sometimes I am though. I haven't figured out what I'm. I haven't figured out what exactly we're going to call it yet, but Matt Huddleston said morning mullitude, which I'm a pretty big fan of. Workman said dude stuff in the mornings. Sir Jimothy, dude stuff dudes, and dude whoa. I'm open to a lot of ideas. The only thing is you got to be able to SEO it for people to be able to find it. So, because I don't have a big enough name to just use my name, so you run into some issues there. Do you know the Mullet Man? Big bearded boys. Paint it green with Jeremy Greene. I like all of these. Patrick Holt said touching tips in the AM. The only problem is that I'm not going to have anybody's tip to touch. So, except my own. And the wall, I guess. So, let's see. William Workman, they said that Jason Kelsey had too short arms to be a good center in the league. He ended up being a year in, year out All-Pro. That's kind of what I was saying about how I evaluate centers. People worry way too much about metrics. Kelvin Joyner asked, how do you tell the difference between a guard who snaps or a true center? Now, that is where you start getting into actually analytical breakdown of tape, because I will tell you I have missed on a few guys that I thought would end up being centers that wound up being decent enough guards, but they couldn't run the mechanics as a center. That's a longer answer for another day, but I would happily give that film study one day of answering that. Patrick Holt said he's been yelling for touch and tips since this whole thing started. He has. Gambit said that my answer on centers actually answered it pretty well. He tries to phone booth evaluate guys rather than compare and contrast to players in the same position. That is, to me, it is much easier to evaluate linemen against each other than it is, and then you stack your board that way, because you start seeing, if you watch player A and player B has really bad habits that ultimately lead to him getting beat, you start noticing that player A doesn't have that. And then you can kind of compare and contrast them, and then it almost becomes like playing Would You Rather. And by the time you're done with it, you got a board, and you go, hey, I didn't realize I liked that guy that much. I couldn't tell you how many times I've ended up doing that, where I didn't like a guy in a phone booth as much, and then I started basically playing Would You Rather, and by the end of it, he's my fifth tackle in the class, and I just look at the list and go, I did not know that about myself. Evening Alex S. He asked, with this many bad teams, who's pretending to be bad and who's terrible? And also, what's wrong with Michael Mayer? Michael Mayer is the second tight end for the Raiders, and he is in a really shitty spot because he's behind what might be the best tight end in the league, Brock Bowers. As for who is really bad, the Jacksonville Jaguars are really bad. The New England Patriots are really bad. The Tennessee Titans are really bad. The Carolina Panthers are really bad. The Las Vegas Raiders are really bad. Everybody else is varying levels of gray, but those teams are bad. Sir Jimothy said, out of NFL season, y'all should do this format show every now and then with you and Tank. We have actually debated doing that. The problem is doing it. Here's what we think we're going to do. All right, I'm glad you asked that question because it allows me to expand on this a little bit. What I think we're going to do is, moving forward, instead of just being put off by the Braves, we will probably do a show like this from our own respective houses. And so we will still have content on the channel, even though the Braves are preempting us. That is the most likely. So that's definitely on the table. Stephen Tao said Indy should go quarterback. They definitely should. And asked Michael Meyer, the Austin Powers guy. Yeah, he's a dick. He's a dick, and basically Hollywood went, fuck you with pickles. And now he works at Home Depot or whatever the hell he does. Alex S. asked, who is pass rusher one? For me, that's James Pierce. Abdul Carter is a very close two. And look, there are a couple guys that I like the raw of, but James Pierce for me is the best pass rusher in this class, even though the results have not been there for Tennessee this year. Realistically, where could Travis Hunter thrive? Probably my favorite landing spot for Travis Hunter would be the Dallas Cowboys, oddly enough, because I could see a path that Jerry Jones hires a coach that just goes, hell yeah, play him on both sides. I don't know that it's a great idea, but I think that's what he wants to do. I don't think he gives a shit. Kind of like Shohei Ohtani. I don't give a shit that it's going to lessen the number of years I can play. It's going to make me special. People that I have talked to that have talked to Travis Hunter have said he wants to play both sides in the NFL. And it's a bold strategy, Cotton. That's how it works out for him. Sir Jimothy, chances Keon Coleman plays this week against the the Colts. Let me see if there's an update on that before I answer that. I know what I want to say. I just want to make sure there hasn't been an update that I've missed. Let's see. Man, he is super far down here. That is looking like he's on the wrong side of questionable. I would say maybe 5%. It's looking more likely he misses multiple weeks than that he plays this week. Jekyll, how do we feel like Jonathan Brooks will be in his first game? Ask as a fan in a deep league with Bigsby questionable. Would one start Brooks in his first game, Carolina at 9 a.m. to commit early if Tank doesn't change? If it's questionable Tank Bigsby in a game where you're getting Mac Jones and probably a loaded box or Jonathan Brooks, I would go Jonathan Brooks. That's the reason that I don't understand why you're paying Chuba Hubbard $9 million fucking dollars if you're the Carolina Panthers. That's just stupid. It's stupid. And you can at me all you want to. Well, he's been good for my fantasy team this year. I don't doubt that. He is irrelevant on third down. And you're paying there are a million running backs in this league that can run between the tackles. Chuba Hubbard's just one of them. That move. The more after I said it out loud, I started to get pissed off about it, and now I'm even more pissed off about it than I was before. Kelvin Joyner with a super chat. Apologies that I didn't see that until now. Those don't come up the same way.
Bill Nye the Science Guy. Bill Nye the Science Guy. Go.
I've long favored that one. I think that one's pretty solid. But that's a very good comment. Oh, wait a minute. You heard the sound? How the fuck did you hear the sound and I didn't? Gavin said that was an experience of music. I am dumbfounded at how you heard that and I didn't. Technology's fun. That's because I'm going to be 100% honest with you. That doesn't make a fucking lick of sense because everything that's coming through this stream is running in my ear right now. And I didn't hear a damn lick of it. Okay. All right. Always good when shit doesn't go the way you think it will. But sorry for the cacophony of sounds. Let's see. I lost my place because I got distracted. Great North said Josh Allen is Phillip Rivers 2.0. He could be. He's way better than Phillip Rivers, but Alex S. asked my college quarterback rankings as of today. My one's Cam Ward. My two is Shedeur Sanders, and every other quarterback is some level of irrelevant. I love Jackson Dart, but he's going to have to go to a very specific place. I like Drew Aller's talent. Quinn Ewers, to me, just strikes me as the guy that's going to get drafted in the top 10 and just bust out. And I had him really high going into this year, And a lot of my evaluator friends said, you're going to regret that. And now I'm starting to see what they were saying. But we will start with position rankings probably after Thanksgiving as well. We have a lot of shit coming up in the next few weeks. Let's see. Austin Groves said he traded Debo for JMO to give himself a Goff JMO stack. How does the mullet think I did? My problem with that would be is that Debo's a higher end player. I like the stack. That's a DFS thing that people are realizing works for season long as well. I'm going to talk about you here. The guys like Tank and I, we've been doing that shit for years. And we really like the stack. I think you probably could have gotten a little more, but I'm not mad about it. I don't trust Debo. I have him on 0 teams because he lives hurt, and I could not tell you how many times he has gone out in the first or second quarter of a game and just completely fucked me. I also just realized that you said Debo is my 5th receiver, and I unwind everything I just said because now I don't care. If you got 4 receivers that are better than Debo Samuel, you're never playing Jameson Williams anyway. But in bye-week fills, yeah, that gives you a stack that would be interesting. I now have to know who your other 4 receivers are that are better than Debo Samuel. I also need to know if Baby Tank is in your league, because I feel like you would have to have 11 Baby Tanks to have 4 receivers better than Debo Samuel. Great North Sports, 70% of the primetime games have hit the under, and there's a great chance it's going to happen tonight. I don't believe it, but there's a great chance. That's over the past 6 seasons. William Workman said Chuba getting extended just shows that they don't think Jonathan Brooks will be ready in the next year. He is on pace to play this week, and he's better than Chuba Hubbard, and it's not close. If he can walk, he's better than Chuba Hubbard. I think that's a terrible deal from Dan Morgan. Which goes to what Alex says here. What has Dan Morgan done? They've drafted all right. They said they'd commit to the run, and they haven't. They said they'd stop the run, and they haven't. Do not like him at all. You also got to understand, you can't really evaluate GMs for 3 years. I hate this Chuba Hubbard deal, but other than that, I've liked a lot of what Dan has done, and I see the path. I also like Dan, which doesn't hurt anything. But it's hard to evaluate GMs in real time because not all of that's his fault. Not committing to the run, Dan Morgan ain't got a damn thing to do with that. His coach does. The coach he hired does. And if you thought Dave Canales was going to really commit to the run, I don't think you've watched him over the last handful of years. And I would be speaking to Dan Morgan there more than I'm talking to directly to Alex there. Kevin, the PRF, the Bengals have been one of the most disappointing teams of the year. I keep picking them to turn the corner, but they just can't do it, and they probably can't do it tonight either. Honestly, I don't. They probably can't do it tonight either, because this is an ugly matchup. Great North Sports said, I can be available. Oh, I did not think of that. You could be available. We could have an uncensored show with myself and David Smith. I think that's a damn solid idea. Let's see. Stephen Tao said, you like friends, call it how you doing. Well, the only problem is that it's steered directly to dudes, and if I ever use that phrase, would not involve dudes. But I do love that show. Stephen Tao did try to get us to name the morning show or the Sunday show Morning After for a year. He's the one that originally put that idea in my head, and I've literally had it on the list of what do we do with this for an extended period of time. I would say Morning After is probably the leader in the clubhouse right now. Alex S. said Morning Mulligan and Morning Muff. I don't think I can make the second one work. The first one, possibly. Breakfast Ball. That's another name that I wrote down. Breakfast Ball. Breakfast Balls. However you want to do it. Gigi Gambling said, get a rubber hand with a finger to touch tips to. You could get one with a suction cup and slap it on the wall with your new favorite player of the year and green screen it. It's not bad. Sir Jimothy said, I'm as smart as a rotten potato. How do you watch film without just enjoying the game and watching the game as a fan? Because I watch the game as a fan on Sunday. I watch the film on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. So the NFL, one of the reasons the NFL is just fucking awesome is that they really streamlined the ability to get all 22 tape. So it's, if you're a credentialed member of the media, it is insanely easy. And it really helps. It's one of the reasons I've been a better draft evaluator over the last 5 years than I was in the 10 years before that. Oh, William. Oh, let's see. I skipped one. Joshua Brooks, how would you fix the Chargers if you were in charge? To be honest with you, yours is pretty simple to me. You get Shad and Tony Khan the fuck away from it. You become the owner. You know what? You want to sit in the booth, that's fine. But your days of press conferences and shit like that, they're done. You go find the guy that you believe in. I don't give a damn if it's the coach. I don't care if it's the GM. You go find the guy that you think can right this ship. And you funnel this franchise into him. And you give him 5 years. You don't do this fire a guy after 2 or 3 years bullshit that Jacksonville has done seemingly since Tom Coughlin. And you really give a guy an opportunity. Give a guy a chance to build a culture. And stop hiring the hot name, whether it was Urban Meyer or Doug Peterson or whatever. I would go get the guy I believe in. I have a few of those. It's just a question of which one would work for them. And then I would coach up the talent that I have because I got a lot of talent in the building. I don't have a deficiency of talent. I have a deficiency of well-coached talent. So we will in the offseason do a Fix the Franchise series where we do like an hour on that every day. There are where things went sideways with my soundboard. Joshua Pennick said, the sportsocracy versus technology is my favorite segment y'all do, honestly. And you know what the funny thing is? I am so tech savvy and Tank is so not, and yet somehow I still fuck up as much as he does. And I don't know how that works. I've been sitting here for 10 minutes trying to go, how the fuck did they hear that? There is no logistical way that it should not come through here and go out there because it's a mainline source, but whatever. At one point, Great North and I did have plans, which we should revisit those. We should bring back Mullet Man and the Canadan. I think that's solid. I think it's solid. It's a solid idea. Sports and jorts. That's a good one. That's a good one. Let's see. Gambit fan asked, what is the player that everyone insisted could be great, that had you screaming from the rooftops? How do you not see that he sucks? Oh, I could give you one of those a year. Every year for the last, probably 15 years. Let's go through this. So we just came out of the 2024 draft. So I'm literally going to open these by year. This year was Caleb Williams or Bo Nix or maybe J.C. Latham, especially if you're planning on playing him at tackle. The year before that was Anthony Richardson. The year before that was 22. That year was Ike Mekwonu playing tackle. And how anybody had Derek Stingley over Sauce Gardner. Well, if I live to be 200 years old, nobody will ever appropriately explain that to me. 21, the player that I really thought sucked was Justin Fields. Their quarterback's a lot. But I have some good ones outside of that. Jeff Okudah, I was pretty loud about the year he came out. I did not like Jedrick Wills at all. I did not like CJ Henderson at all. I didn't like Tristan Wirfs at all, either of those. If I'm going to, I've hit on the vast majority of these, but I thought Tristan Wirfs could only play right tackle. 2019 Cleveland Farrell, I did not see him going 4, and I didn't understand him going 4. I still don't understand him going 4. And I didn't love any of the quarterbacks in that class. Kyler Murray has been better than I thought he would be. 2018, now you're getting into some fucking doozies. Baker effing Mayfield. I hated him with every fiber of my... I had a 3rd round grade on him. And guess what? I don't think I've been wrong about that for 5 seconds. 2017 was Mitch Trubisky. I did not get how he was even in the ballpark of a top 10 pick. And John Ross. 2016, I'm trying to get back here to one that I missed on really badly, but it hadn't happened yet. I didn't have one really in 2016. I liked that class. Vernon Hargreaves is probably the right answer, because I remember him getting picked and just laughed my ass off because I had just watched Florida State cook his ass. On the converse of this, Kevin White was the guy that I screaming from the mountaintops how good he was, and yeah, I was wrong. And Dante Fowler was the one in 2015. So really, I have one of those about every year, and I've done a pretty good job of being right. Great North Sports said he traded his 2nd round pick this year for Alexander Madison in Dynasty. Well, he is a starting running back in the NFL. We have I'm not going to hear this, but I'm going to play it. The only problem with it is I'm not going to know when it went. Sir Jimothy said the Uncensored Show should allow guests. Hey, anybody's got a microphone that you can be heard on? I'm in. I'm all the way in. Grove said his receivers in that league are JS, the one where Debo was his 5. Smith and Jigba, Evans, Puka, Flowers, and Waddle. Wow. That's a solid set of receivers. Gambit, the worst one, but could still be Caleb. The worst one that's had me jumping from the rooftops. Oh, God, Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield that was really when I actually started making a name for myself in this shit, because nobody could figure out why I hated him so much. And over time, I think they figured it out. Workman said Brooks has double the talent of Chuba, for sure. I think he has double the talent of Chuba if you cut one of his fucking legs off. But as it currently sits, I would say he's at about 5X. But I'll settle on double. Grove said he went Breece Hall at 103, then with receiver until round 6 and 7. Good God. Great North said we were going to do pre-Thursday night kickoff show with some less than savory names. That got annihilated by the flood and life and all the things, and I hate that. We will intend on doing that next year. May even pick it up at some point this year. Dave, you and I just need to sit down and talk and hammer some of these things out. Dubs has all access to the All 22. If you and I may be able to get you access to that. I feel very sure I can do that. Jay Swider 82 said, call it morning falafel. That's a good one. Sir Timothy said, call it the best morning show, and it's not even that close. It's pretty solid. Don't do crimes without me. More beers makes it more clear. Workman and Jimothy said, sign me up for a guest spot. We can totally do that. We can totally do all of those things. Okay, I have managed to talk for 2.5 hours with one break in the middle. It's been fun. I do enjoy doing these things. I appreciate you guys putting up with with just a little bit of the politics, just because I have to get it out. It fucks with my brain when people just have to be so douchey to each other. And nobody gives a shit. All right. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares who you voted for. Nobody cares what porn you watch. Nobody cares. Stop being weird. Stop taking your ball and going home when you don't get your way. And that's the last I'm going to talk about it. All right. This has been fun. We'll be back. We'll be back tomorrow with Football Friday. And the best show from Baby Tank in a while, according to William Workman. I appreciate all you guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'm Jeremy Greene. We'll see you back here at noon in the Sportsocracy tomorrow.